Hey, good morning, folks. We've got kind of an interesting program for you today. We're going to be wandering around the Mohave Museum of History and Arts. This is in Kingman, Arizona, here on Beale Street. And it is a first-class facility. We'll find Andy and find our host for this adventure here in just a little bit.
Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America.
Should be an interesting morning.
Jim Hinckley's America.
Let's go see if we can find our host and guest.
She'll probably start at the president.
Okay,
Hey Jim, how you doing this morning?
let's see if we can go find everybody.
Cool.
Mr. Greg Arnold, I guess we're going to start up in this direction. And
Awesome.
Art, how are you doing today? We got Michelle Drumheller from the frosty Northeast.
Who all is going to be here?
Hey, Jim.
Mr. Shannon, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
There's Andy and good morning, young lady. How are you, Vicki?
I'm fine. How are
Are
you?
we ready for this?
About as ready as we can be.
Very good. Where do you want to start today?
No, I always start my tours right here in this room.
Okay.
We got kind of a mess in there, so because they're going to paint, so you got some of the stuff
Moved around.
moved around.
Yeah.
No
They're
problem.
Yeah.
And I
But
told
you're going to point out that we're great facilities managers. We're a great job at facilities
and I
managers.
explained to everybody this morning, Shannon, that I'll be down after this. I'll be here to sign books and answer questions if people want.
Okay.
Okay, so is it just us doing the
Yeah,
tour?
we'll just.
Are
Okay.
you going to set up, or do you want to?
Oh, we'll just follow her.
He's already
No, I'm
on.
in the table. Do you want a table for signing books, or you just want to do it in
No,
the library?
I'll just do it right there in the gift shop.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, first off, when I give a tour, this is where we start, this room. We call this our Hall of Presidents. And I will ask, let's see, just to make sure all you know all about your presidents. These portraits were painted by Lawrence Williams. He was commissioned in the early 70s to take the originals from the Library of Congress, and at that point in time he painted 3 full sets. We have a set, the Smithsonian has a set, and the 3rd set we've been told is in a state legislature building in their basement.
Oh, this is good then. So this is
So these are original copies of the originals, and they are portraits.
that's Kingman has so many treasures like this. It's really quite astounding.
Yeah. And Lawrence Williams was able to paint through and up to the Obamas. And unfortunately, he died in 2003 at the ripe old age of 93.
Ooh.
So the Obamas were painted by a local artist. Her name was Sandy Racinko. She did our wall murals inside and out.
There's
and
Andy.
She moved to Colorado and the Trumps were elected. Those were actually commissioned for us through Scott Dutton in town,
Right.
because his family was instrumental in helping to get us the portraits that we have here.
Scott's also the president of the Kingman 366 Association.
And as a side note-
Mr. Greg Arnold.
Yes, and as a side note, Roy Dunton had purchased many of these. This was his jacket.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right. Do you feel honored?
Oh my God, like you wouldn't believe. It feels like I'm wearing armor.
Sam Walton's.
This is mine. How's that? So first and foremost, how many presidents were there prior to George Washington?
2.
Wrong.
5.
Wrong.
6.
Wrong. 15.
15.
15. They were one-year term presidents. The first 7 were one-year term presidents under the Continental Congress. Basically, they were just a mouthpiece between the King of England and the colonies. The next 8 were also one-year term presidents under the Articles of Confederation. George Washington was our first United States president, in which they served a term of 4 years. One man who served a term on each of those first 2 factions, and we recognize him because his name is in the center of our Declaration, very flowy.
Jefferson?
No, you know,
Hancock.
Hancock.
Oh,
Because everybody recognizes his signature. You got your saying, sign your John Hancock.
I've gotten in
That's-
trouble doing that. Somebody told me to sign my John Hancock, and I did. I
Yeah.
signed John Hancock.
That's
what-
where that saying come from. As you also know, each of these portraits are done from the chest up, or better known as the bust shot, because in the early days, when the only way that a portrait painter could reproduce the human image was by painting, if he had to paint extra, like arms and legs, it would cost extra. So therefore, you got your saying, it will cost you an arm and a leg. That's where that came from.
very cool. Oh my gosh. We need to keep you around. This is awesome.
Now we're going to ask information about the presidents and see how much you know. What was Dorothea Madison known for? And no, not donuts.
Thought I had that one.
Nope.
Dolly.
Any guesses?
Brothels? I don't know.
She was known as the first lady.
Oh.
And the reason for that is when George Washington was president, there was no White House. So he had no need to have official functions in the White House. When John Adams was president, him and his wife and family lived in each wing of the house as it was completed. So they really didn't have any functions there. When Thomas Jefferson was president, his wife had died 12 years before he became president. That is a portrait of their daughter. Her being a teenager, he could not always depend upon her to host functions, so he called upon Dorothea Madison to help out. Also without her, when the British burned the White House to the ground in 1814, she refused to leave the steps of the White House until everything of value was removed, including the original portraits of George and Martha. If you look at our copies here, they have the cloudy bottom. That is due to smoke damage or fire damage to the originals. Also, without her, we would not have our original declaration that we have today, because at that time it was held in the White House.
Wow.
Now, who was the president that served the shortest term? William H. Harrison. During his inaugural speech, it was in the wind and the rain, it was over 2 hours long, he refused to wear a coat or a jacket, he caught pneumonia and died 30 days later. They did not have an original portrait sitting of Anna, his wife, so we like to think this is the original portrait painter's laugh on society. He made her look like him in drag.
Oh my gosh. Even with the little dimple in the chin. Oh my gosh.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, we had one president who never married. He was the only bachelor. Do you know who that was? Usually when I ask that question, all the guys say, look for the man with the biggest smile on his face. That ain't going to happen. Back in the early days, they did not smile. Actually, that man was James Buchanan. He was the only bachelor president, so he asked his niece, Harriet Johnston, to be his first lady. Now, out of all of these portraits, the youngest wife was Frances Cleveland. She was 27 years his junior. She was his law partner's daughter. When she was born, Grover Cleveland actually bought her first baby carriage. When her and her mom came out one summer while he was president, they actually fell in love and got married. It was the first wedding held in the White House. Now, can you name the 4 presidents who were assassinated?
Garfield, Lincoln, McKinley, and Kennedy.
Out of order, but you got them right. Everybody knows Lincoln, everybody knows Kennedy, but they don't remember Garfield and McKinley.
Did they get shot also?
Yes, they did.
Garfield was one of my favorite presidents. I found him an extremely fascinating man.
Now, when Benjamin Harrison was president, he's the grandson of William H. Harrison. But when he was president, they had introduced electricity into the White House. But because they were so unsure of the electricity and were afraid of being shocked, they would actually call on the house slaves to turn the power on and off.
Just in case.
Just that was Benjamin Harrison.
That's shades of Blazing Saddles right
There
there.
you go.
And that's why I always have my wife walk into a room first, just in case there's tigers in there.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. William Taft was our largest president. It is said that he actually got stuck in the bathtub at the White House, and they had to replace that bathtub with a larger model.
Yeah, don't go on a diet or anything.
That's
yeah,
right.
It's the bathtub.
That's right.
Yeah,
now,
that's the
one
problem.
thing that a lot of people don't know is Abraham Lincoln held one of the first patents. And believe it or not, it was a patent for the first floating dock.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see. How about some goodies on some of the ladies? Ida McKinley. She was known to have epilepsy. And during state functions, rather than cause a big scene when she had a seizure, if they were at a dinner party, rather than take her out, take her to another room, etc., and cause a big to-do, her husband would very gently take his dinner napkin when she was having a seizure and put it over her face. When she was finished with the seizure, she would take his napkin back. Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the first lady to be seen in public in a bathing suit. And because we ran out of wall space, we had to go into our little presidential office here, which has our more current presidents. A lot of people didn't realize that Lady Bird Johnson had a first name. And out of all these presidents, the first one to be born in a hospital was Jimmy Carter. Everybody else was home birthed prior to that. Now, in the early days, we didn't have diesel trucks who would actually give us our goods like we do today. Most of it came by rail car, the trains. So, in honor, I guess, of JFK's assassination, all railroad traffic was stopped for a period of 2 minutes in November of 1963. I have the official Santa Fe Railroad missive right here that states that from 8:59 in the morning to 9:01, all train traffic would stop for that 2 minutes.
And everything's been 2 minutes late ever since.
I don't know. So our museum goes in a big round circle, so we're going to go that way
How
through our
many square
museum.
feet is this museum?
Well, it depends upon which wing you're looking at. We have 3,000 square foot, which takes in our library and the artifact holding downstairs. We have probably another 2,500 square feet here. And then our first original museum, which is the lobby area, probably has about 1,500 square feet.
Wow, so it's a nice sized museum.
We have added on 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't look as big as it is inside when you're on the outside, but like I said, it goes in a big circle. Everything in here, because we get no federal, state, county, or local funding, has been donated to us.
Wow, that's outstanding. When
What?
a community can come together like that.
We started collecting our artifacts in 1961. We opened our doors the first time to the public in 1968, and we have not closed since.
So we've got to figure out what to do for a great 50th anniversary. this
Yes, we do. And it's what keeps our doors open is we have fundraisers throughout the year. We have our guests who come in. We now are hosting and doing a lot of tours. So we're getting a lot of tourists trade in here through buses, etc.
Is there any country or area in particular that you get most people from?
No, it depends upon the time of year. We do get a lot of Asians. We do get a lot of people recently from Russia.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, we get a nice good mix of people.
Before they had the addition, which we were in last time, this used to be the conference room.
Oh, was
20
it?
years ago.
Prior to
wow.
that,
Because
well,
when I came in and started doing some of my research, this is where the copier used to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Because I would take the miner and take copies.
and then before it was this room, then they had made it the gift shop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was the gift
This
shop.
was the
for-
gift shop for a while. Now, there is a reason why the U.S. flags are folded the way they are folded. We have a listing on the wall. There are 13 folds in the flag when it is folded. Each fold represents and means something, but when it is completed, you should have 6 white stars showing. The 6 white stars represent each branch of the military.
Oh my God, you know so many things. That's awesome.
Now, along the edge and the fold of the flag, if you see any red, that flag is folded wrong. You should not see any red. That flag happened to be folded wrong, and we had to call the VFW in here to refold it because when it was folded, the red represents, believe it or not, a slap in the face to any military individual because it represents the blood that has been spilled.
Oh.
And that flag has the official certificate that was flown over the USS Arizona. And of course, that flag over there came to us from Desert Storm. And the other one was Operation Iraqi Freedom. Any questions? Any others? No?
How do you remember this?
I actually have 4 more pages of stuff so I can mix it up.
That's
You know,
awesome.
since the presidents could be.
And actually, it's what you do is you go online and you go presidential trivia facts. And
And your picture comes up.
Not at all. Now we call this our Route 66 room. As you know, we're sitting in the center of Route 66, better known as the heart of Route 66. We have the longest paved portion of Route 66 that goes through our area. It starts over by Oatman, comes this way through Seligman. There's 127 miles that is still people can still travel on today.
That's incredible.
Now the sign up on the wall there, Phillips 66, is a 2-sided, circa 1947 Phillips sign. It actually was in our local Phillips station here. The jukebox is a 1937 Seaberg, and it was actually built and put together prior to plastic. This is not plastic on it. This is the first. It's called Bakelite.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they make jewelry and all kinds of stuff. Door handles, right?
Yep.
They did?
Yep, they did. But that was the precursor to plastic. And actually that does work because it has a material electric cord on it. Last time we plugged it in, it kind of smoked a bit. So we thought, well, we better unplug it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it lights up nice. It actually does work. We had to take the records out, believe it or not, because ladies with large handbags help themselves.
Oh man, people, too much.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing what people will do.
I have some
Wow.
thoughts on that, but I'll reserve that for when people aren't watching.
Yeah. Now this is a 1967 Westinghouse soda machine, and back then you got a bargain, 25 cents for a soda.
Wow. What was the hourly wage at that point, though?
And
37 cents?
I probably real close to it. Now we call this our lobby for the simple fact this used to be our original entrance.
Oh, okay. And this is right on Route 66.
That's why we have an address of Beale Street.
Oh, Beale Street. Oh, okay. Okay.
A lot of people get confused, but this is our original entrance. But because we've added on, we no longer use that.
I've always had a fascination for steam engines.
Yeah.
And ever since I was a kid, I can remember this being here, and this has always intrigued me immensely.
Yeah, well, this was actually quite the thing. We've been told if we actually probably oiled it up and got it going, it would probably still work today. But you would put a belt on it, and actually you could run such simple things as a washing machine back then. Yeah. And of course, our Shell gas pump was used in our local Shell station until about 1950 when they upgraded to electric gas pumps. This was called gravity fed. There's a handle on the other side you had to turn, pull the gas up into the dome. You would put the nozzle into your vehicle and gravity fed the gas into your car.
Wow, that's incredible. And what amazing condition this is in.
Mm-hmm. And like I said before, you keep in mind everything has been donated to us. Now the wagon that's here, normally it's readjusted, but they're getting ready to do some paint job up here on our ceiling.
Oh, okay.
But this is built in half scale. It was built by a local disabled Vietnam veteran here in town who likes to just putter around in his garage, and he built it for us. But because this is half scale, if you could think maybe in your mind's eye, double that size would be the size of a regular wagon. And that's what people came across the prairies in, whole families. You put your household inside, and to help the strain on the animals who were pulling the wagon, a lot of the family members would walk alongside it. Now the biggest wagon is called the Conestoga. It would be 3 times as large as a regular full-size wagon. And those were probably the, I don't know, the big Thunderbirds of their day.
The rich people would have those.
Well, it cost so much to pull those because they were so heavy that they could not use actual horses or burros. They had to use oxen.
Yeah.
Not everybody could afford oxen back then.
Kind of a side note, one of the biggest producers of your wagons was Studebaker
Really?
out of South Bend, Indiana.
They
Yeah.
used to make wagons.
Yeah, that's how they got their start. Wheelbarrows, wagons, baby carriages. In the
Right.
1870s, they were the largest manufacturer of wheeled vehicles in the world.
Right.
And
Wow.
it was 4 ox that pulled the Conestoga, right?
Generally 4 to 6,
Six.
depending upon, you know,
Like a
how
meatloaf?
affluent the family was. And yeah.
The kind of a side note, we were talking about Studebaker. Their first automobile was an electric car, 1899, designed by Thomas Edison. And we have the Electric Vehicle Museum here in Kingman. And I was talking to Roderick. They've located what may be the oldest Studebaker Electric in Jerome, a 1902
Oh.
Studebaker Electric. They're working on getting donated for the museum.
Oh,
my
that'd be
God.
great.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be outstanding.
Now, unfortunately, our mural is kind of covered up, but our mural was actually painted by one of our first directors. His name is Roy Purcell. He's a well-known Southwest artist today. He's over in the Tucson, Tubac area where his studio is. But there were main items that put Kingman on the map. Obviously, it was ranching. The ranchers started raising beef to feed the cavalry. Secondly was mining.
Good
We
morning,
did
Penny.
such small ores as gold, silver, turquoise, copper, and many others. And then, of course, the railroad helped put us on the map. But as you would normally look up there, the first thing your eye would stop on is the camel. And everybody would think, what part did the camels play in this area? Well, that was one of the cavalry's biggest foobars. They decided to import about 13 to 15 camels in here, in this area, because they figured we live in desert. Camels are desert animals. They would be good to haul and not take a lot of water and food to feed. But they forgot. They don't get along with horses. They don't get along with burros. And they love to bite and spit at man.
Good morning, Shelley.
So rather than take the expense to ship them back, the cavalry just let them wander in our desert. It is documented fact. If you see a camel in our desert today, the original descendants of the originals that were let loose. Everybody asks me, have I seen any? Well, I'm not going to go out in our desert and look. No, I'm not.
And Roy Purcell also did the chloride mural, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
Oh, sure he did.
Yeah. Now, because we had so many mines in the area, one of the ways that the miners would stake their claim is they would put their claim papers inside a tobacco tin, stack up a series of rocks, and either put it underneath in the ground or in the middle of the rock stack. And that was how they staked their claim. Just to give you an example, this was found in our desert. This is a tobacco tin with an original claim paper in it for a mine. If you come across them, do not try and take the claim papers out. They will disintegrate due to age, which is why we've left that one in there.
When I was a kid, first moved to Kingman, the canyon over where I-40 is now, there was a spring and a house down at the bottom, and up and above there's these little like caves, pockets, and rocks. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine, when we were up there playing around, we found a little one of those little caves, more not just really a room. Somebody had obviously made it a home, and it was so old. The saddle there, the leather had gone. It was just the tree left on the saddle. Mm-hmm. And we found one of those tins, and I still have a $20 Confederate bill.
Oh, wow.
That was folded up in one of those tins.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Well, our local Indians here are called the Wallapai. And this room is dedicated to our local Wallapai Indians. Now, this is a typical rendition house, better known as a wickiup.
Rich, good morning. How's things in St. Paul? You've got quite an audience here this morning, young lady. We got people watching from St. Paul and Fredericksburg, Virginia, and
wonderful.
Germany, and
well, if they're interested, tell them to come on down and visit us in person. We love it.
We've got a few that look like they're headed this way.
Are you open every day?
We are open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, on Saturdays 1 to 5. Now, and we will do special tours with prior notification. We will open our doors on Sunday and bring in a small crew to accommodate.
Oh, great. Yeah, so if somebody was having a tour, they could just call you?
Yep.
And
as an
set
example,
up.
if there was a bus group coming through and the only way or only time they were coming through would be on Sunday, they would call us and we would make arrangements to have a short crew here, and we would open specifically for that bus group.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we try and accommodate anybody and everybody.
And the things that you'll be able to teach them, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, now the item here as far as the wickiup, because we have desert dwellers, they would find what they could in the desert to make their huts. Plains Indians, they had and were able to have access to animals, larger animals, and they would use the skin and make teepees. But out here, we had the huts called wickiups.
And what would they make them out of?
Brush, whatever was out in the desert. Usually, if they could, the uppermost portion of the wickiup, they would use the mesquite branches or tree, for the simple fact that the mesquite branch has a waxy bark. Our extreme heat in the summer will melt that wax over the top of the hut, and it helps protect it in the winds and the rain of the winter.
That's smart.
Yeah, well, Indians worked on. They were the first peoples here. And as you look at the baskets and the pots in here, the plain pots and baskets were used for everyday use. The extreme decorated ones were used as gifts. In the Indian culture, when they gave a gift to somebody, whether it be a pot or a basket, it always had something in it that the other individual or tribe or whoever could use. Maybe it was seeds for planting. Maybe it was hemp for rope, or maybe it was rope. It might have been beads to use as money.
Or peyote.
Whatever.
Depends on what was going on that weekend.
I
that's
don't
all.
know. That I don't know. Now, I have had a lot of people ask me how come we have a lot of Indian artifacts in here. And right now, most museums are governed by the Reparation Act by the U.S. government. And it was to help protect the Indians from having their items that were used in ceremonies stolen. Well, because we get no federal funding, we're not under the Reparation Act.
Oh,
And all of this stuff, believe it or not, like I said earlier, has been donated to us, and most of the Indian artifacts have been donated to us by the local Indian tribe.
wow, that's great. They have a really rich culture.
They do.
You know, like we go to the Grand Canyon and the skywalking stuff. It's absolutely amazing what we have here in the American Southwest, and especially our area.
And because out here the Indians had to use every part of an animal that they butchered, this particular pot here is a water vessel, and it is made out of an animal's stomach.
Is that right?
That is correct. Is what they would do is, obviously, when they butchered the animal, they would take the stomach, wash it out as good as they could, fill it as full of water as they could. They would do a processing on it, whether it was with fat, animal fat or whatever, set it in the sun, let our extreme sun process it. When they were done, they would empty it out, and it would be a sealed water vessel.
How clever is that?
I've always found it darkly ironic that when we came, with the Anglos came to this country, like with the Truxtun Canyon Indian Agency, you know, we tried to teach the Indians how to farm. I always found that, I mean, it should have been the other way around. We should have been listening to them and having them teach us how to farm instead of being arrogant and trying to reinvent the wheel, so to
Right,
speak.
exactly. Yeah, they had some really good ideas that have lasted throughout the centuries for them. Now, these have an official name. A lot of people call them a grinder, but that's not the official name. Do you know what it is?
Hernia maker?
These are called matates.
Matates.
Matates. And obviously, you would take and grind your seeds, and as you could see, it makes a fine powder because we just use the mesquite seed.
And of course, grinding on rocks, you'll get your minerals right mixed in right with your food.
That's
exactly.
it. That's it. But how I remember the name of these, and these, it's a Spanish name, matate, is some years ago, Walt Disney did a cartoon movie called The Lion King.
I remember that.
It had a famous saying in it, Hakuna Matata,
Yeah.
Matata.
Matata. I could pick the
Right.
little warthog dancing.
Matata, Matate. That's how I remember it. But the saying in the movie meant no worries. Well, in the Indian culture, if they had seeds that you could grind up for food, they had a good growing season.
Right.
People would live, so they had no worries.
That's awesome. And did they form out these bowls somehow, like with a different type of a rock, or was this
Just from use.
where?
Just from use. And actually, I have one in here that shows the rock going all the way through the base of it.
Oh,
That was
wow.
so well used.
That was somebody's favorite one too. They were like, "Oh man!"
One hell of a Tupperware party, huh?
There you go.
That's really.
And Vicki, my wife does want one of these.
Can't have one of these, I'm sorry. Used to be able to get them all over the place, and now they are hard to find because people have confiscated them and not giving them up.
These are that thing, they're almost priceless anymore.
Almost, you betcha. Well, I like to always say, you know, hey, I work in a museum. Everything in the museum is old. We are considered artifacts. I am too. I'm here to be preserved. Well, hey. Now we're going to go this way.
And what's this room?
This room is dedicated to some of the other Indian tribes we have in the area. We just came out of the Wall of Pipe room. We have such Indian tribes as the Yavapai, the Hopi, the Anasazi, Mohaves, and a lot of many others. Of course, nowadays, because the Indian tribes are so intermarried, they actually like to be called the people.
Oh,
Yeah. And as you see, in a lot of our cases, we actually use turquoise as a decorator in our cases. Good indication right there in this first case is in the center is a raw piece of turquoise. You can see the turquoise in it. That is not dirt. That is copper. So we have not figured out is turquoise a byproduct of copper or the other way around. But it really didn't matter in our area. We had a copper mine called Duval, closed in 1972. And we have a turquoise mine called Mineral Park, better known as Kingman turquoise. And turquoise comes in different colors, from very light green to very deep, deep blue. It's all in the processing. Kingman's known for the deep blue. Here's a piece. It's all raw.
And Marty and Koi Lin Cobalt have that now.
Actually, it's 4th generation owned. It was originally started by a woman. Her name was Cordelia. And we'll get in and see her picture in the mining section.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You really do have everything here. This is awesome.
That mine is a lot older than that, though, isn't it?
Pardon?
What, the mine out there at Mineral Park, that's a lot older than when somebody actually formed a company and started mining there. I think the Indians were mining that. For a long time.
That I'm not sure of. I don't want to say unless I actually know, because I don't want to give out false information.
They just make stuff up. Oh, yeah, well.
Yeah, no one's going to know, right? I'll know. Now, in the Indian culture, as you see these rugs on the wall, when a rug is made, there has to be a flaw in it to let the bad spirits be released. No self-respecting Indian would place a carpet on their floor in their hut and not have a way for the bad spirits to be released. If they did so, believe it or not, they would be ostracized by the rest of the tribe.
So do the other tribe members come in and look at the rug to make sure that there's...
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That first rug right there, up on the left-hand side on the black stripe, you will see a flaw that was put there intentionally. On this one here, up on the left of the point, they used a darker gray thread. That's the flaw. That was put there intentionally. This one we haven't figured out what was going on. Up on the top band of this red, that's all flawed. This is flawed intentionally. It works the same way you've heard of dream catchers, right?
Yes.
Well, dream catcher you put over the head of your bed, and as you dream at night, all your bad nightmares, if you will, are filtered through so that you have a calming, relaxing night's sleep.
So
Yes.
dream catchers are supposed to go over the head of your bed?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because I see them hanging from people's
Don't
rearview mirrors in their car. Maybe they shouldn't go to sleep then, though. Right?
Don't we have a couple of
Speaking of nightmares,
Yeah.
We do sell those in the gift shop,
I
yes.
thought we had one that Geronimo made or something.
Well, no, in our gift shop,
Okay.
we actually have original Indian-made ones. They're not processed, through in bulk. Yeah, we actually have a lot of items that are made by local Indians.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that from now on with my metal art. I'm going to say, no, that flaw is supposed to be there
There you
because
go.
it lets out the bad spirits.
Bad mojo.
Yeah.
That's right.
Guess what I'm telling my editor today about my spelling mistakes?
Yeah, exactly. It lets out the bad spirits.
There you go.
Why is the stool wobbly? Bad
Bad
spirits.
spirits. That's right. Now, this display is dedicated to our ranches, and as you can see, these brands were all used prior to 1895, but some of these families are still here today. Some of them do still own ranches, but maybe not on the scale that they did back in the early days. And one of the reasons why in the spring they had to go out and bring the calves to the homestead to brand them is looking at these are rather heavy. You couldn't carry them on the back of a horse, so they had to have their fires to keep these hot closer. Well, our local ranchers actually devised one that they could carry on the back of a horse. It was called the Running Iron brand. It was lightweight, it could fire up hot and quick, and they could actually brand a calf before they brought it into the homestead. Well, that only worked until the cattle rustlers got a hold of it. Realized not only could you change a brand, but you could, cause all kinds of havoc as well.
Wow. So that's a running iron. That's what.
That's a running iron brand.
Wow. Because it was light enough you could take it with you.
Right.
So you're on the run and you can.
Right. Exactly.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yep. Now, back prior to electric, no computers, you had to do everything by hand. Every ranch would have one of these. It was called a tally book. That tally book told everything about the ranch. How many animals were born, how many died due to weather, how many were sold, how many were butchered for food, etc., etc. That would be your ranch Bible, if you will. Now this would probably be your rendition tack room. And when you look in there, you will not find a single bottle of booze.
And why is that?
That is because if you were caught drinking on the job, no questions asked, immediate grounds for termination.
Wow.
They took their ranching business very, very seriously. And because we had such large ranches out here, the ranchers had to be their own law and order. So they would either, in an area that had trees, they would hook or take rifles or guns, put them in the branches of the trees, have something attached to the triggering device, and as you walked across their land, if one of the guns went off and you found yourself dead, oh well, you were where you were not supposed to be anyhow.
Oh my gosh. So there was no warning shot.
That's right. And this is what happened here. Over by Hackberry, one of the ranchers left his gun in the branch of a tree. The tree branch grew around it because he forgot it. It had a wooden stock. Time and elements disintegrated the wooden stock. Now, I'm not brave enough, but I bet if you wanted to look into the rifle end, it's probably still loaded too.
It's like a Daffy Duck thing.
Yeah.
No, more like Wile E. Coyote.
Now this is just some of the barbed wire that was used out here in this area. This is only about 60 samples.
There's an actual museum in McLean, Texas on
Yes.
Route 66, the Devil's Rope Museum and Route 66 Museum. And I got to tell you, I never thought I would find myself spending hours in a barbed wire museum, but it was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Yep. I've been told there's about 400 different styles and sizes of barbed wire. Now here's just some of the mines we had in the area. The years of operation and what they actually mined. We're going to be going into our mining section, but some of your more affluent homes might have had something like this in the entryway. This is called a glove chair. Everybody wants to know, what is a glove chair? Well, when you came in from outside, you sat down, took your coat off, put your coat around here. Took your hat off, your hat would go here. Take your boots off, they go under there, and believe it or not, you had a place to put your gloves. And of course, prior to baby books, you would have something like this. This is called hair weaving.
That's hair?
That's hair. That's human hair. Now, there are two different kinds. There is the memorial, in which when someone passes, they take a lock of that deceased individual's hair. They also have the birthing one, which is new babies born. They would take a lock of the new baby's hair. Usually a patriarch of the family, grandma or somebody to that extent, would take that lock of hair. They would twist it into a pattern and then attach it and make a picture out of it. Now, I've been told if we had the names of every family member on here, we would have DNA on that whole family.
So that's what they used to do before they had television.
Before they had baby books, yes. Well, television too.
Hey, Grandma, Dad, go snip her hair.
There you go. Now, most of our mines in this area were shaft mines, which meant they went straight down into the ground. So the miners below ground had to find a way to contact the guys up above to tell them what they needed in materials. They devised the bell system based on the number of rings of the bell. Below ground could tell above ground what was needed. Ingenious, huh?
Yeah. 15 rings, everything's okay. 16, we need help.
And no rings, never mind, it's too late.
Bell stopped ringing. Close to mine.
Dead ringer.
Dead ringer. That's perfect.
Now you guys have heard of Oatman, Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Well, the original town name was called the town of Vivian.
Oh.
And we have found out that most of the mines out here were named for women. So we don't know whether that was because it was in honor of maybe a loved one, that the miners, most of them came across the country just to do mining. Whether it was somebody they left at home, wife, mother, sister, who knows, girlfriend. Did they call them girlfriends back then?
No, there was another name.
There was another name. We do not know. How it got its town name of Oatman is in 1851. A Mormon family decided to come just a little further west, separate from their wagon train. When they came out here, the Yavapai Indians attacked the train.
Oh.
And it attacked their wagon because they were by themselves. They slaughtered the whole family, threw the 13-year-old brother's body over a ravine, leaving him for dead. Believe it or not, he did survive. They took the two oldest girls, their names were Olive Oatman and Mary Ann Oatman, and took them as slaves. They were not very nice to those two girls, but they were only with that brand of Indians for 2 years. Then they were sold to the Mohave Indians, who, when the Mohave Indians got them, actually adopted the girls into their tribe. But the first year that they were with the Mohave Indians, the youngest one, Mary Ann, along with many other braves, actually died due to starvation. But because they were adopted into the tribe, as a rite of passage, they put a permanent tattoo on their chins. As you see the picture of Olive Oatman, she actually does still have that tattoo because that was permanent. It took 3 years for her brother to buy her back through an Indian scout. They said when he got her back, it took her a year to learn the English language again, and they would go out on the speech circuit. And she was so embarrassed by her tattooed chin that when she gave her speeches, she wore a hat with a veil that came over her face, or she talked with her hand on her chin.
Wow.
Now, I had told you about the copper mine, Duval. The mountain over on the left here is a picture of what the mine looked like prior to operations. The one on the right was around the time they closed in 1972. That was the only open pit mine we had in the area.
Oh, they took the whole top of that off.
They took the whole top of it off. You couldn't even consider it being a mountain now. And like I said, that mine closed in 1972. Now, if you're roaming around out in our desert, you might find something like what's in this case. The official name is called
Fulgurite.
fulgurite. Thank you. I had to see
I just
the sign.
read it.
Yeah, it was better known as petrified lightning.
Neat.
When lightning hits sandy soil, it will turn the sand to glass. You've seen the movie or heard of the movie Sweet Home Alabama?
Yeah.
Same idea. Only we don't have to put lightning rods out. Mother Nature does it for us. But it's what those are, is tubules of glass caused by lightning. They have said the longest one they have seen has been 2.5 feet straight down.
Wow. There must have been some bolt of lightning. Oh,
Actually,
my gosh.
the heat on that lightning. It would have been the heat that caused it.
Good morning, Jax.
Yep, and like I said, Mineral Park was our turquoise mine. Cordelia Kay. She was the first mine owner of the Mineral Park mine.
And you mentioned Cordelia earlier, didn't you?
I did, because you had mentioned the coal boss.
Oh, right.
And I had said it was 4th generation, and it started by a woman. Her name was Cordelia.
Wow, and there she is.
And I always go, yay, girl power.
Right, exactly.
Now, I had mentioned we had shaft mines out here. Out in our desert, you really have to watch out if you're walking, riding ATVs, etc. In 2007, this is what happened to a couple of girls. They were on an ATV following their father, and as they backed up to follow him, they backed up over a big bush that was covering the entrance to a shaft mine.
Oh, wow.
They went down the shaft mine, and unfortunately it took them like 13 hours to locate the girls. When they located them, and they were down in the bottom of the mine, believe it or not, the oldest one, who was like 13 years old, took her 9-year-old sister and had shifted her to the front of her, protected her. The 13-year-old perished, and the 9-year-old did survive with injuries.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was out in our desert here.
So be careful.
Yeah. Now in the 1800s, mid-1800s, you might come across something like this. A lot of people say this is the torture chamber. Well, this would have been your typical dental office.
Yikes.
And as you can see, the drill is a foot-powered drill. Now, so what you want to keep in mind is back in the 1800s, your dentist was probably your barber. He was probably your mortician.
Convenient.
And maybe, just maybe, he owned the local watering hole, better known as the pub.
So you might find liquor bottles in here.
No, if you came into him today with one hole in your tooth and he tied one on the night before, you might walk out with 4 or 5 holes in your teeth.
No, that's kind of convenient.
Well, there you go.
That the guy's the barber, so if he sneezes and slips, he's also the undertaker.
Now you know what this is, right?
Player piano.
A player piano. Now the whole idea is underneath the seat is a panel, and it has pedals. You sit down and you have to pump the pedals to get air to come up to each of these hoses, which is attached to a key on the keyboard. So I don't have to do that. Our volunteers hooked it up to a little pump.
Fantastic.
Now the whole idea is as it pulls air into these hoses right here, it blows the air out here through these holes. When you put your scrolled music on, and it triggers each of the keys. So I am going to go ahead and demonstrate.
Look at the intricacy of the chains and the mechanisms. I find that so fascinating.
Now, these player pianos were considered your first karaoke machine because of the simple fact that as the music scrolls, on the right-hand side, reading up are the words to the song.
Oh, that's great.
So you can sing along with it as well.
Greg, we're counting on you.
To stop singing.
Yeah.
Or to not sing.
Keith, you ready? For singing. Huh?
Me, me, me.
Okay.
You.
That is amazing. We just got to get everybody singing along here.
That is so clever. Oh, and you can change the tempo
Yeah.
and rewind. Bass, treble. Wow.
Mechanism.
when was this piano from?
1905.
1905. Wow. So 113 years later.
It's all original.
Wow. And would you give? Do you give tours here? Is that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. So
I act
then,
as tour guide here.
great. So then you could give people demonstrations if they want to. That's fantastic.
Now the rolls are actually made from rice paper.
Wow.
So they are very delicate. You can get them today. They just cost a pretty penny. Now we have actually had a piano tuner in here, and he has tuned the piano portion of it. It kind of skips some keys a little bit, but my tubes here that are attached to the keys, those have pinholes in them due to age. Like I said, it's in 1905. The Windsor player piano was actually built in mass to be sold in the Montgomery Ward stores.
Oh,
Now, back when they were first made, they sold in their store for about $250 to $300.
which was a lot of money, right?
Back then, in some households, it was an annual salary.
Wow.
So, once again, you had to be pretty affluent. Now, these faded out and phased out in 1928, 29, because they had such things as Victrolas that were actually on the market at that point in time.
Wow. So that was like the portable version of this.
Exactly, exactly.
That's slick.
That's absolutely amazing. How ingenious.
There's a museum, if you ever get a chance. It's fallen on hard times, and I worry what's going to happen to their collection, but it's a Pioneer Village in Mendon, Nebraska. And the fellows started buying stuff in the 40s and 50s like this. And I've never seen it. It's absolutely amazing. Everything from spark plugs to China doll heads, player pianos, evolution of kitchens, whole rows of refrigerators and appliances, outboard motors and cars.
Now, this is our display of Andy Devine. A lot of people ask us, why do we have a street in front of us named after Andy Devine? Andy Devine was actually born in Flagstaff. His parents moved here when he was a year old, and they moved here because his dad worked for the railroad, and while he was working for the railroad, he lost his leg in an accident. So on his retirement funds, the family moved here, bought the local Hotel Ville downtown, and they ran the hotel while Andy, his brothers, and friends ran the town.
Oh.
To get an idea of Andy and his voice, I actually have a recorded voice here of him. The Devine family donated all of this artifact stuff to us. Let's see if I can get it to play.
Kellogg's, the greatest name in cereals, presents Wild Bill Hi, you folks, hold on to your hats and pass those Kellogg's sugar corn pops. 'Cause here comes Guy Madison as Wild Bill and his pal Jingles, which is me, Andy Devine. We got another rootin' tootin' Wild Bill Hickok adventure story for you from that great new cereal with the sweetening already on it, Kellogg's Sugar Corn Pops.
What a distinctive voice he had, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, when he started in movies, he started in silent films. So when they came out with talkies, they had actually said, Andy, you'll never make it. You have to be able to talk. Little did they know that voice of his would make him so famous, he actually had his voice insured through Lloyd's of London for over $1 million.
Oh, wow.
To get an idea of what a large man he was, there was his official movie chair.
There was a whole bunch of Andy, huh?
It was a lot of Andy.
And make sure you say Andy Devine.
Andy Devine. Not just Andy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to have to probably wrap this up pretty quick. I'm running out of battery.
Uh-oh. This saddle was his parade saddle, donated to him by Kellogg's Company, who, as you heard, was one of his sponsors. That was donated in 1960. It has his horse's name inscribed on the yoke. His horse's name was Joker. It has his signature inscribed on the tapaderos.
And I understand our Tim Woods saddle maker here had the honor of restoring this, refurbishing.
Actually, he was actually polished up the leather and then
Incredible.
polished the silver as well.
Yeah, he does such wonderful work, and we're so lucky to have him right here in
Yep.
Kingman.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because this is absolutely, well, it's a museum piece.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's inlaid silver. It was specially made for Andy. Generally, the largest seat from pommel to the back of the seat is 16 3/4. Because Andy was so large and it was specially made, that is 18 1/4 inches.
Wow.
Every time I see that saddle and I see the chair and I think of Andy Devine, I just cry for the horse.
Actually, Andy raised horses in California where he actually had made his home. Now, when he played the part of Jingles in the Wild Bill Hickok series, as you can see, like that picture up there, the leather jacket, he had a pair of leather pants that went with it. This is that actual jacket.
Oh, wow.
We do have the leather pants. It is in our artifact department. Now, he was such a large man, we had to extend that hanger 6 inches on each side, and we had to fluff up the shoulders with tissue paper to be able to hold the weight of the coat.
Wow.
But that is the original coat.
Vicki, this has been wonderful. God bless. Thank you for taking time this morning, coming in early and doing this. This has been really wonderful. And
Maybe later you can do a part 2. and finish it.
We're not done.
Oh,
By
no, we're not
any means,
stretched.
we're not done.
It'll be part 20.
well, you know, I'm game for a part 2. I really am.
That's fine. That's
We've,
fine. We can do that.
if I didn't run out of battery, we could keep this thing going.
Yeah, that's fine. Anytime. Like I said, I'm here. My official title is office manager, but I do tours and usually a tour, just the tour itself, lasts on average about an hour.
Wow. And that's still don't
So,
feel like
folks,
enough time.
do you think we should be doing this again? Just let me know. But I already know the answer. I can see that.
Well, I hope you get a lot of reviews.
Oh, we've got everybody's real happy here. Vicki, thank you. And I'm game for a part 2. A couple of weeks ago, we did a program in the
Yeah, that was awesome.
down in the basement, and everybody enjoyed that immensely. So we would love to do this again. Folks, thank you for joining us this morning. It's been really fun running out of battery. These programs are brought to you through the support of our viewers through our crowdfunding program. And it's amazing what $5 will get you nowadays. But if you can contribute, help, great. Keep the programs rolling, and we'll be back next week.